next individual is a true example of servant leadership and is a shining example of what FFA can do to help mold successful members. While in the FFA, he served as the West Virginia FFA Association state president and took part in numerous activities. Today, he works as the Director of Agricultural Education for West Virginia Department of Education and serves as our state FFA advisor. He is a native of Ravenswood and is a true believer in the power of the FFA. FFA members and guests, please join me in welcoming to the stage our state FFA advisor, Mr. Jason Hughes.
It's been wonderful the last several years. We've had to do something during this moment. We continue to have to as we grow the FFA in the state of West Virginia. And if I could have Brad come up and assist me, we're going to hand out 3 more charters to new programs, new FFA chapters in the state of West Virginia. So if an advisor, maybe a representative, come forward, Brad's going to present you with your signed charter. Sherrard Middle School. Great journey to come up that stage.
Good luck, Sam.
Maybe know where Sherrard Middle School is. What county? Marshall County. Marshall. Some of you are saying, where's Marshall County? It's in base of the Northern Panhandle. That wasn't a knock against Marshall. That was just some people live in other parts of the state. Congratulations. Then we have East Preston Middle School. Then we have a chapter that's reactivating their charter, and that's the WVU Mountaineer Collegiate chapter. It's been wonderful several years in a row now that we've been handing out charters at this point. We had another chapter, Calvin Gilmore, that couldn't be here, so we handed theirs out CDEs. If you were there, we did that then. Typically, in these remarks I'm able to make here, I typically give kind of a state of things for West Virginia FFA, and decided to kind of mix it up a little bit. You know, we're still doing very wonderful things in our state. Our membership is still above 5,000. We're doing great things on the national and the state level. And I could talk about all those things like I typically do from year to year, but decided to kind of share with you something more from the heart, if you allow me to. What do you think? Okay, I actually want to start with the game. How many of you ever played the game True Two, it's a tongue twister, evidently, 2 truths and a lie? You ever played it? Okay. I'll give you a little brief synopsis of how it goes. We'll actually play it real quick. I'm going to tell you 3 things, and you've got to determine which one's a lie. You ready? Okay. And the way you do it is you tell about yourself. So, trying to just kind of break the ice, maybe get to know me a little bit more. Number 1, in no particular order, I've been married for almost 25 years. But before I was actually engaged to my current wife, I was engaged to a Swedish foreign exchange student. That's number 1. Number 2, when I was 11 years old, I swam on my community swim team and wore Speedos when I did. 11 years old, so try not to get any visual pictures. And number 3, I live on a farm and own 2 pigs, 6 chickens, and 10 cows. Which one of those 3 is a lie? Okay. I heard 3. Who votes 3? Okay. Who votes 1? Who votes 2? Okay. The lie was the 3rd one. I do have 2 pigs, 6 chickens, but I don't have 10 cats. Now, you're probably thinking that old guy who keeps losing more hair every year is losing his mind too. Actually, I have a reason for starting out that way. I actually picked up a book a few weeks ago that I have at the house. I have several books I like to read, but this book was actually about the young people of your generation. You're saying they write books about us? Yes, they do. Who knows what your generation is called? Generation Y. Were all of you born somewhere between 1984 and 2002? No. Now the latter part of that generation, in this book, they call you the IY generation, those born after 1990. Who thinks they know what the I is all about? The internet. And then add to that, iPods, iPads, iPhones. You are the IY generation. And in this book, I picked it up and was looking at it, and one of the chapters really struck my attention. It said, amending the lies we, and that's me and ones my age or older, have told Generation IY. So, if you'll let me for just a real brief time, I'd like to share with you 3 of those lies. Now you see why I started with that. And 3 stories of 3 incredible people have lived lives of meaning and purpose. Is that okay? Can we do that? Lie number 1. Remember, the book said this, not me, so if you have a problem with these lies, you can pick up the book. Lie number 1 says, you're a winner just because you participated. Hate to bust your bubble, but this is a lie. Many of you know that because you're FFA members. You know that success takes a lot more than just showing up. You know, to participate, the definition is to be involved with others in doing something, taking part in something, which that's wonderful, but we should have never connected it with winning or success. To be successful, we have to move up a notch into the contribution level. To contribute means to give of oneself, whether that's money, your goods, or your time, to help another group of individuals. How many of you would agree this world needs more sincere people that make contributions? So I'd like to tell you a story about just about this, about a man that I met one time, spoke to for 5 minutes, and I'll never forget it. His name was Don Behan. I met him at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Museum in Dayton High. Anyone ever been there? Okay, this was just a few months ago. We were walking through the exhibits, and we were in the World War II section. This gentleman came up on a people mover, and, you know, we noticed him out of the corner of our eye, and he kind of said something sort of quietly, I could barely hear, and I said, excuse me, sir, and he said, that's my plane. And he pointed to this plane. I said, you know, I got real attentive at this point. He said, yeah, I flew in a plane with a crew just like this one in World War II. Well, I was just in awe, and I obviously stopped in my tracks. And as he was talking to me, he reached into his pocket, he pulled out this old 70-year-old picture of his company, of men, and said, here we are, back in World War II. He went on to talk about the plane. He said, yeah, I sat right there in that rear ball turret shooting a 50 caliber Browning machine gun. And our mission was to run over the Strait of Gibraltar looking for German subs. And he went on to say that on D-Day, that's exactly where he was and what he was doing. I don't know about you, but I mean, that just gripped me. I'm thinking, here's living history in front of me. So we went on to talk, and I found out that after the war, he married. He worked a job for over 40 years, raised 5 children, and stayed married for over 60 years. And just lost his wife about 2 years ago. Told me he was 92 years old, and he drove himself to the museum that day, and did it quite often, just to pull out the picture and to be with his men in his plane. Now, that's a successful person in my eyes. That's a man who lives by faith also. He had faith in his Creator, who endowed him with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Faith in others, his country, his family, his kids, and the faith to keep on going even when so many in his life had passed on. Pretty impressive. Lie number 2 This one might get you. You can be anything you want to be. This statement has some truth to it. Let me just explain. I believe you can be, but I believe it has to go beyond just saying it or thinking it. That there are some God-given strengths we each have. We have to combine those strengths with passion, dedication, and a willingness to work and make sacrifices. Would you agree? You'll need to be more than a participator to be anything you want to be. And sometimes it may take years in your life. Take my good friend Bob Ratcliffe, for example. Okay? Here's a man I went to church with, a man that never married, lived in a very small apartment, meager existence. Got to know him a lot better when we did a jail ministry together. And after I was no longer able to do it, he went on to drive about an hour one way from his home for 6 years. And in that process lost a job at a plant because of downsizing. And so he did it on very limited income. Keep in mind he was in his mid to late 60s when he did this. While he was teaching the class, he found his true passion, teaching adults. And so he went on to seek a new dream, obtaining a teaching certification. And in his early 70s, he did. He accomplished his goals. In the early 70s, he started serving as a sub-teacher in Wood County, wanting to be a full-time teacher. But years earlier, he'd been diagnosed with cancer, and it had kind of come back, and his health was not very good. In fact, he was subbing one day and started falling asleep because he had no energy. The kids took his picture and turned him in, and he was no longer allowed to sub. But he really didn't realize how sick he was. A few weeks later, I was actually there the morning that he passed away beside him. Deeply moved, but couldn't be too sad because I knew the kind of life that Bob had lived. And weeks later, we were cleaning out his apartment, a very small apartment, his meager worldly possessions, and a handful of boxes. And we found a scripture over his telephone where he could see it every day. It's the one found in 2 Timothy 2:4, and it says, "No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier." That's how Bob lived. He was a successful, great man with a lot of hope and dreams. Lie number 3. Last lie. You shouldn't worry about what anyone else thinks. Again, there's a little bit of truth in that. We shouldn't let the opinions and the words, especially the negative ones of others, shape who we are. But it is important to consider their opinions, feelings, and dreams. This lie has led many people to just not care about people. And we become so fearful about what others think that we're so quick to defend ourselves or relationships have suffered. So let me share one more story about one more person that loves unconditionally, invests in relationships. And she's actually a former student of mine named Alicia. Alicia loves people like I've never seen. She loves her parents. Growing up, they didn't have a lot, but they invested their money in spending time together, not in their house or their vehicles. As with many families, they've had their fair share of heartaches. And her brother, younger brother, another former student of mine, when they graduated, became addicted to heroin, really bad, and began stealing from the family and living a life out of control. But Alicia kept loving her brother, even when he was hard to love. Sometimes it was tough love, but she never stopped. She would share her struggles and concerns with me and just sob about it. Her brother has since pretty much overcome his addiction, lives in California. There's not a year that goes by that she doesn't spend the money, her hard-earned money, to fly out to see them. You know, it's those actions of love that make the difference. Those actions like showing up, being there, giving of oneself. That's love. And it didn't surprise me when Alicia and her mom drove 2 hours and walked into my dad's viewing last fall with a big, wide open hug, because that's just what people do when they love others. So in conclusion, I've kind of talked about these 3 individuals and sort of sewn in the concept of faith, hope, and love. And let me just tell you, that's my message. That's what matters most in this life. Some people exist. I challenge you to live and find what really matters. How many of you know what the golden rule is? How many of you know you can actually find the golden rule in the Bible in Luke 6:31? Do to others as you would have them do to you. Another one of my favorite scriptures is 1 Corinthians 13:13. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. I've come to a point in my life where I realize that when you strip everything else away, it's really our relationships and what we do with faith, hope, and love in those relationships that matters. And speaking of gold, and I believe the 3 people I've shared stories with you about are golden people.